Hey guys, Matt here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're in the shop again. I'm doing things welders do, such as welding. Check out my new welding cape by Tillman this time, not Black Stallion. So Black Stallion's thick, nice welding cape lasted a while for me. I'm referring to this as a cape. It's like a half jacket. That one lasted a long time for me, but it eventually bit the dust. So I updated to this one because I just bought new shirts that are nice and thick and comfortable and will protect me from the dangers of working in fabrication all day. And I burnt a hole through it because I just had these lawn welding gloves. They came up to like my elbows, but the welding spark would always find a way to land in the elbow even if I was careful. So I'm back to using the full protection. It's not worth blowing through your $20, $30 shirt every single time. So yeah, it's nice to have new gear. It makes you feel good, makes you feel protected. I had a new order of Carhartt duck pants show up in the mail today because my previous pants had holes in them and were all shrunk up and had seen better days. So that's nice, updating my previous welding attire wardrobe so I can do my job safely and effectively and still look professional while doing it and look clean. You don't want to look like a poor welder. You want to look like you have your stuff together. Once you get to a certain level of welding and in your career, look the part. Make sure you dress well, you dress right. That includes blue-collar jobs. So let's take a look at the project I'm working on today. It's a temporary staircase for a construction site. They're building a multi-family housing complex, and the project manager / owner needed something so his construction guys can get up to the second floor because they're building this thing, but there's no stairs yet on the inside or outside. We do have the project to do the railings and the finished staircases on this project, but this is temporary, so they can screw this up with some lags into the header, the side of the building, secure the feet into the dirt, and have something to walk up and down safely. So let's take a look at it. So as you can see, we bent some 10 gauge steel into a C-channel, welding it together at the joints, practically full pin welds. It's going to be 12 feet up in the air once it's set in place at its 36.6 degree angle. So as you can see, it's a pretty large ladder. It's taking up a big portion of our shop, the entire welding table at the moment. And then we pre-bought these catwalk steps and we welded them to the C-channel side. We cut them to length. It came in lawn lengths. Tacked up right here is the feet of where it's going to be screwed into the ground. And then here at the top is the header of where it's going to be attached to the building. Fairly simple concept, a lot harder to execute due to its size and solely because everything needs to be square and accurate and the height needs to be accurate. That's what makes things difficult. You got to calculate the height that the building is and where they want the finished stair to be, and then see what code the incline can be, the variance, and then calculate what each step needs to be angle-wise. So a lot goes into it, and it's cool to see it all come together. This is a very clean project. It was well done, start to finish. The design, the concept, the drawing up, the cutting, to the welding. So it's fun to be a part of pretty smooth projects such as this one, and I've had fun making it. One thing to take into account is how did I get each one of these steps to be the exact same angle as their fellow steps. It's pretty simple. Again, all these concepts in fabrication are not super complicated. So we have like 1/4 inch flat welded to 10 gauge piece of steel, and that gave me that angle. Now watch this. I take this piece. Now this, to assemble this, I stood this up. So basically the whole stair was turned up on its side, sitting on top of the C-channel, okay? You get the first step correct, and then you bump this angle up against the first step, and then you would set this stop up against this finished step. Because I did all the angles and measuring and everything with this first step, and then you build the jig around it. That's usually how jigs are going to work, especially when you're in a shop and you're doing stuff per project. You get something spot on, and then you build the jig around that piece. It's just much easier to do it that way. So I bumped this piece of angle iron up against this, tacked it, And as you can see down here, this backstop to help keep this pretty perpendicular off of the face of this C-channel, I welded this up, tacked it up into position, and then we were ready to go. I have a backstop to clamp to, I have a side stop to clamp to, and then of course the side of this. So as you can see, this jig is gonna be nice and square off of this because I'm going off of the side of the C-channel. Then I have my backstop, and then I have my side stop that's 90 degrees as well. So the step was pretty square. So I'd lay the C-channel down on this table on the flat side, and then I'd set a step up, I'd do its configuration with the jig, and then I'd tack it and I'd move on down. To brace the tops, I started doing towards the middle. I learned that if I clamped the top, so basically 2 C-clamps with a piece of steel to hold the tops from wiggling back and forth. This was the piece of C-channel. Let's just say this was the C-channel laying down on its face. The steps were all like this, stacking up down it, so they were wiggly on top. So I'd hold them with a C-clamp and a piece of extra steel laying around to keep the tops from wiggling as I was tacking, so they could remain the distance apart they needed to be. How did I get on the other side, you ask? That is a good question. So what happened is once I had all the steps lined up, tacked to the C-channel laying on the table, there was 2 options. I could have set the other C-channel on top and then tacked it. It was getting too tall at this point. We picked it up, so the C-channel was picked up by the forklift and the little steps were dangling off of the C-channel. They were just tacked on. And we set it on top of the other C-channel that we then put on the table. And then I did the exact same thing, except it was easier this time because the tops were being held because those were previously tacked to the C-channel on the top. So while this was attached to the top, again, this whole thing was standing up on its side. And since the top was all finished, it was much easier for me. I did have to build another jig though, because it was on the opposite side. So I had to come up with another jig, but it was easier this time because the tops were held and I knew that was good. So we had to square up the C-channels and make sure they started at the same point. So we used a plumb bob, I think I'm saying that correct, to hang from this top, from a point of this top corner to the bottom of this corner. And we made sure that they were perpendicular to each other. They were square. One edge of the C-channel wasn't more forward or back than the C-channel opposite it. We did that, and then I made up the same type of jig, but facing the other direction, since we were on the other side of the C-channel now, and then just went and tacked all the steps to the other side.